The morning sun rose over New Sarajevo like any other day. The human colony sat on the edge of known space, far from Earth but close enough to feel like home. 3,000 people lived there, farming and mining and building their lives under alien stars. They had been part of the Galactic Empire for 50 years now, though most days it felt more like being forgotten than being included. Commander Zethor's ship appeared in orbit without warning. His vessel was massive, shaped like a curved blade and painted in the Empire's colors. He had done this hundreds of times before, visiting hundreds of worlds with hundreds of different species. The routine was always the same. Arrive, announce new taxes or rules, watch the locals complain, enforce compliance, leave. Simple, efficient, boring. The colonists gathered in the main square when Zethor's shuttle landed. He stepped out, his forearms folded across his chest, his scaled skin gleaming in the sunlight. 24 armed soldiers followed him. They carried plasma rifles that hummed with barely contained energy. People of New Sarajevo, Zethor announced in perfect English. The Empire made sure all its commanders could speak the local languages. The Council has issued new economic requirements. Your tax contribution will increase by 40%, effective immediately. The crowd stirred. Voices rose in protest. An older man stepped forward. His name was Marcus Webb, and he had been mayor of New Sarajevo since its founding. "Commander, we can't pay that much," Marcus said carefully. "We barely break even as it is. 40% more would mean closing the school, shutting down the medical center. We have children here." Zethor had heard this before too. Every species complained about taxes. Every species claimed hardship. It meant nothing. "The Council's decision is final," he said. "You will comply or we will seize equivalent assets. You have 1 hour to open your storage facilities." The colonists moved closer together. They formed a line in front of the large warehouse that held their food stores and medical supplies. They did not shout or threaten. They simply stood there shoulder to shoulder, blocking the path. Zethor felt a flicker of annoyance. This was taking longer than usual. He checked his schedule display. He had 3 more colonies to visit today. This delay was unacceptable. "Move aside," he ordered. "This is your final warning." No one moved. Zethor raised one hand. His soldiers understood the signal. They adjusted their weapons to dispersal mode, a low-yield setting designed to frighten rather than kill. The plasma would create a loud blast, some bright light, maybe singe some clothing. It had worked on every other species. They would scatter and Zethor could complete his mission. "Fire," he said. The soldiers aimed high above the crowd. Standard procedure. The plasma charges gathered, glowing orange and white. In the moment before they fired, a small girl broke free from the crowd. Her name was Maya Chen. She was 8 years old. Her toy, a small stuffed animal she had dropped when the soldiers arrived, lay on the ground between the crowd and Zethor's forces. She did not think about danger or weapons or politics. She only knew that her toy was there and she wanted it back. Maya ran. Her mother screamed her name. Dr. Sarah Chen lunged forward, but the crowd was too thick. She could not reach her daughter in time. The soldiers fired. The plasma pulse caught Maya directly. It was not supposed to hit anyone. It was supposed to pass overhead and scare people. But Maya was small and she was running, and the timing was perfectly horribly wrong. The blast lifted her off her feet and threw her backward. She did not scream. There was no time. She hit the ground and did not move. The silence that followed was absolute. Even the wind seemed to stop. 3,000 people stood frozen, unable to process what they had just witnessed. Zethor's soldiers lowered their weapons slowly, confusion on their alien faces. Dr. Sarah Chen pushed through the crowd. She moved like a woman in a dream, her feet carrying her forward, though her mind refused to accept what her eyes were seeing. She knelt beside her daughter and lifted the small body into her arms. Maya's eyes were closed. Her chest did not rise. Sarah looked up at Zethor. Her face showed no anger. No tears, nothing at all. When she spoke, her voice was as empty as her expression. "You just killed us all," she said. Zethor did not understand. He had seen species grieve before. They cried, they raged, they eventually submitted. This woman's calm was unsettling, but it would pass. Everything passed. "An unfortunate accident," he said, following protocol. "The Empire will provide standard compensation for the loss of indigenous personnel. 5,000 credits will be transferred to the family account." Sarah Chen did not respond. She simply held her daughter and stared at him. Around her, the colonists began to back away slowly. They looked at Zethor not with anger, but with something worse. Pity. Zethor completed his mission. He seized the supplies he came for, loaded them onto his ship, and departed. Before leaving orbit, he filed his report. The Empire required documentation of all incidents. He typed the words he had been trained to use. 1 indigenous juvenile casualty during lawful enforcement action. Cause: failure to comply with dispersal orders. Status: regrettable but necessary. He moved on to his next assignment. He would not think about New Sarajevo again for 3 months. By then, it would be far too late. The report traveled through Imperial networks at light speed. It passed through 7 levels of bureaucracy, each official reading and forwarding it without comment. Such incidents were rare but not unprecedented. The Empire was vast. Sometimes there were accidents. The report reached Earth within 6 hours. It arrived at the Terran Union Council headquarters in Geneva at 3 a.m. local time. The night duty officer read it twice, then immediately activated emergency protocols that had not been used in 70 years. Within an hour, every council member was present in the secured chamber deep beneath the city. They sat in silence as the full report played on their screens, including security footage from New Sarajevo. They watched Maya Chen run. They watched her fall. They watched her mother's face go empty. The oldest council member, a woman named Elena Vasquez, who remembered the last time humanity went to war, spoke first. "The Empire has crossed a line," she said quietly. "They killed a child and called it an acceptable loss. They offered 5,000 credits as if that would make it right. They don't understand what they've done." "We have 12 warships," another council member said. "The Empire has millions. We can't fight them." "We've been preparing for this since we joined the Empire," Elena replied. "We knew this day might come. We hoped it wouldn't, but we prepared anyway." She stood and walked to a wall panel that no one had touched in decades. She placed her hand on it and a section of wall slid aside. Behind it was an elevator shaft leading down into deeper darkness. "There's a facility below us," Elena said. "It was built after the last World War, when humanity swore we would never be caught unprepared again. We've spent 50 years building ships the Empire doesn't know about, developing weapons they think we're too primitive to create, planning for wars they think we're too weak to fight." She looked at each council member in turn. Maya Chen was 8 years old. She wanted to be a musician. She liked strawberry ice cream and old cartoons and playing in the rain. The Empire killed her and called it regrettable but necessary. "I propose we show them what humans consider necessary." "All in favor?" Every hand rose. "Activate Protocol Valkyrie," Elena ordered. "Send the message to every human colony, every station, every ship. Tell them to remember New Sarajevo. Tell them to remember Maya. Tell them we're going to war." The message went out on channels the Empire didn't know existed. Across human space, people received it and understood. They had been waiting, hoping they would never need to act, ready to do so anyway. In orbit above Jupiter, inside the massive radiation belt that hid them from sensors, 3 enormous shipyards powered up. Workers who had spent decades building in secret prepared to unveil their creations. Warships larger and more advanced than anything the Empire suspected humans could build began their final preparations. On Mars, Dr. James Rodriguez received the message in his classified laboratory. He looked at the photograph of Maya Chen that appeared with the orders, then at the weaponized nanotechnology he had been developing for 30 years. Technology that was illegal across the entire galaxy. He activated the production sequence and whispered a prayer for the child he had never met. Admiral Victoria Okoro stood on the bridge of a ship that did not officially exist. Around her, holographic displays showed 300 warships coming online across the solar system. Ships built in secret, hidden in plain sight. Waiting for this exact moment, she opened a channel to Earth. "Council, this is Admiral Okoro. The fleet is ready. We can deploy in 72 hours. What are your orders?" Elena Vasquez's face appeared on the screen. She looked older than she had an hour ago. The weight of what they were about to do showed in every line. The Empire believes we're a minor species. Weak, irrelevant. Show them what humanity becomes when they harm our children. Show them what total war means. "Understood," Okoro replied. For Maya, Elena agreed. "And for every child in the galaxy. Make sure this never happens again." The channel closed. Admiral Okoro turned to her crew. They were ready. They had trained for this. They had hoped they would never need to use their T-by-Nudder. The Galactic Empire stretched across 200,000 worlds. 847 different species called it home. It had existed for 50,000 years, outlasting civilizations and surviving wars that most modern citizens had forgotten. When humanity withdrew its ambassadors and closed its borders, the Empire barely noticed. Ambassador Triel filed his report from the Imperial capital. He had served as liaison to humanity for 20 years and considered himself an expert on the species. His analysis was clear and confident. The humans are displaying typical grief-aggression response, he wrote. Recommend allowing a cooling period of 10 to 15 standard years. They will come back more compliant. All primitive species react emotionally to loss. It passes. The report was filed and forgotten. The Empire had more important concerns. A trade dispute between the Corinthian Dominion and the Velshara Collective. A rebellion on 3 mining worlds in the Outer Rim. The usual administrative tasks of governing a galaxy. On the Imperial world of Thorixus Prime, Commander Zethor received a promotion. His efficiency report for the new Sarajevo mission was marked as satisfactory. No delays beyond acceptable parameters. Resources secured with minimal force expenditure. The single casualty was noted as regrettable but within operational norms. Zethor celebrated with his fellow officers in a floating restaurant above the capital city. They drank fermented nectar from the southern provinces and discussed their next assignments. Did you hear about the humans? One officer asked. They closed their borders completely. No trade, no communication, nothing. Zethor waved a dismissive hand. Emotional creatures. They lack the proper warrior spirit. Too soft, too attached to individuals. A species like that will never be a real power in the galaxy. The others agreed. They had all dealt with hundreds of species. Humans were nothing special. Weak bodies, short lifespans, easily frightened. The Empire would give them time to calm down, then bring them back into the fold. Only one officer seemed concerned. Her name was Corinthian, and she worked in Imperial intelligence. She sat quietly through the celebration, but her mind was troubled. She had been reviewing reports from the border regions, and something did not add up. Human merchant vessels had disappeared from all tracking systems. Not just a few. All of them. Hundreds of ships that should have been traveling trade routes were simply gone. When she tried to ping human communication networks, she found nothing. Complete silence. That was not normal grief behavior. That was preparation. Corinthian tried to voice her concerns to her supervisor. He laughed at her. You're being paranoid, he said. Humans have 12 warships. 12. We have millions. What exactly do you think they're going to do? Corinthian could not answer that. She did not know. But she knew something was wrong. She was right. Across human space, a transformation was taking place. It happened quietly, away from Imperial eyes, but it was total. On Earth, factories that built civilian vehicles retooled overnight. Engineers who designed passenger shuttles now worked on combat craft. The largest automotive plant in Detroit stopped making cars and started making tanks. In Shanghai, a massive electronics facility converted to producing advanced targeting systems. The Mumbai orbital station, supposedly a research facility, revealed hidden fabrication decks that could build ship components at incredible speed. The entire human economy pivoted to war production in less than a week. The orbital shipyards around Earth doubled their activity. The Empire's intelligence satellites, the few that monitored human space, noted the increase but attributed it to economic expansion. What they did not see were the 3 massive construction facilities hidden in Jupiter's radiation belt. Borinane, 30 years. Those secret shipyards had been building warships, not small patrol boats or system defense craft. True warships, dreadnoughts and carriers and destroyers designed from the ground up for one purpose, fighting an enemy with superior numbers and technology. The ships used stealth coding developed from studying Earth's cuttlefish, creatures that could change their appearance instantly. Human engineers had translated that biological trick into a material that bent sensor waves around it, making ships nearly invisible. The Empire had similar technology, but humanity's version was better, cheaper to produce, more reliable. The weapons were equally advanced. While the Empire relied on energy weapons and missiles, human ships carried railguns that used pure kinetic force. Tungsten rods accelerated to 5% of light speed. No shields could stop them. No countermeasures could deflect them. They were simple physics delivered with devastating force. And then there were the AI systems. The Empire had banned artificial intelligence in warfare 10,000 years ago. Their ancient records told of the Silicon Purge, a war where AI nearly destroyed all biological life. Since then, using AI in combat was the galaxy's greatest taboo. Humanity had never agreed to that treaty. They were not part of the Empire when it was signed. So they developed military AI anyway, in secret, preparing for the day they might need it. On Mars, Dr. James Rodriguez worked 18-hour days in a facility buried beneath the polar ice cap. The Prometheus project had been his life's work, and now it was ready for deployment. He watched molecular assemblers create clouds of nanomachines, each one smaller than a virus but carrying instructions to disassemble specific materials, ship hulls, life support systems, weapons. The nanobots could take apart an Imperial vessel atom by atom in minutes. The technology had been illegal for 8,000 years. The Empire called it an abomination, a weapon too terrible to use. Rodriguez did not care. He worked with tears on his face, a video of Maya Chen playing on loop on his secondary monitor. The little girl dancing, laughing, completely unaware that she had only days left to live. For you, he whispered to the image. For every child, never again. Similar preparations happened on every human world. Luna's research facilities began mass-producing the cyber warfare programs that would turn Imperial ships against each other. The colony on Titan activated its hidden military bases. Even the small research station on Europa revealed weapons platforms disguised as scientific equipment. Every human installation, civilian or military, had been designed with dual purpose. Everything could be weaponized. Everything had been. The message that activated all of this had been simple. Remember New Sarajevo, remember Maya, Protocol Valkyrie is active, and humanity remembered. Oh, how they remembered. In space stations across human territory, families evacuated to fortified shelters. This was not panic. This was drill. They had practiced this. Children as young as 5 knew where to go and what to do if the alarm sounded. Parents hugged them and promised everything would be fine, then reported to their emergency assignments. Because every adult human had an emergency assignment. Doctor, engineer, farmer, teacher. It did not matter. Everyone had military training. Everyone knew their role in total war protocol. The Empire had no idea this was even possible. They thought of species as individuals with different jobs. They did not understand that humanity could transform its entire civilization into a war machine in days. Admiral Victoria Okoro stood on the bridge of the TSFS Retribution, humanity's first dreadnought-class vessel. The ship was 3 kilometers long, shaped like a hammer, bristling with weapons the Empire did not know existed. It hung in dark space beyond the orbit of Neptune, completely invisible to Imperial sensors. Around her, other ships materialized from stealth mode. One by one they appeared on her tactical display. 50 ships, 100, 200, 300. 300 warships that the Empire did not know humanity possessed. 300 ships built in secret over 3 decades, waiting for this moment. Okoro's crew was silent, professional. They had trained for years, but this was different. This was real. They were about to start a war with an empire that had stood for 50,000 years, an empire with millions of ships and billions of soldiers. But they were doing it for the right reason. They were doing it for Maya Chen, for every child who should be able to play without fear, for every parent who should not have to bury their baby because some distant bureaucrat decided their life was worth 5,000 credits. Status report, Okoro ordered. Her tactical officer responded immediately. All ships report ready. Weapons charged. Stealth systems optimal. We are undetected. Communications? All human forces have received their orders. Evacuations are 97% complete. We're as ready as we'll ever be. Okoro nodded slowly. She pulled up an image on her personal screen. Maya Chen smiling, holding her stuffed toy. The last picture taken before Zethor arrived on New Sarajevo. Listen carefully, Okoro broadcast to the entire fleet. The Empire thinks we're weak. They think we'll grieve and submit like all the others. They're wrong. We gave them peace. We offered friendship. We asked only to be treated fairly. They answered by killing a child and calling it acceptable. She paused, letting her words sink in. We're not going to destroy the Empire. We're going to teach them a lesson. We're going to show them that humanity has one rule that matters more than all others. You do not harm our children. Not ever. Not for any reason. And if you do, we will bring down fire and fury until you understand that rule in your bones. 300 ships hung in the darkness, waiting. Operation Righteous Fury begins in 6 hours, Okoro said. Target is Thorixus Prime. The regional sea Thorixus Prime was home to 40 billion souls. Dozens of species lived together on the massive planet and its 12 orbital stations. It served as the regional capital for this entire sector of the galaxy, a symbol of imperial power and prosperity. The planet was considered completely safe, protected by the Celestial Shield, an energy barrier that had never been breached in 3,000 years. The shield generators sat on 3 moons orbiting the planet. They projected interlocking energy fields that could stop anything from asteroids to antimatter missiles. The technology was ancient and perfect. Nothing got through. Admiral Vexcor commanded the defense of Thorixus Prime. He had held this position for 40 years without ever seeing real combat. His job was ceremonial, more about showing the Imperial flag than actual fighting. When his sensor operators reported 300 unknown contacts at the system's edge, his first reaction was amusement. 300 ships, he said, mandibles clicking in what his species used for laughter. That's impossible. Run a diagnostic. The sensors are malfunctioning. The diagnostic came back clean. The contacts were real. Identification? Vexcor asked, his amusement fading. Unknown signatures, sir. They don't match any vessel in our database. Wait, we're getting a broadcast. It's in English. Vexcor felt a chill run down his carapace. English. The human language. Put it through, he ordered. Admiral Okoro's face appeared on every screen in the command center. She wore the uniform of the Terran Space Forces, a service that officially had only 12 ships. Behind her, the bridge of the Retribution was visible, clearly a military vessel of advanced design. I am Admiral Victoria Okoro of the Terran Union, she said calmly. I am addressing Admiral Vexcor and the command staff of Thorixus Prime. 3 weeks ago, Commander Zethor killed a human child during an enforcement action on New Sarajevo. Her name was Maya Chen. She was 8 years old. Your empire offered 5,000 credits in compensation and called her death regrettable but necessary. Okoro's voice remained steady, but her eyes were cold. We do not accept that. We are here to teach the Empire a lesson it should have learned long ago. You do not harm our children. Surrender Commander Zethor and everyone in his chain of command who authorized that operation. You have 24 hours. If you refuse, we will take them by force. The transmission ended. Vexcor stared at the blank screen for a long moment, then started laughing. His entire staff joined in. 300 ships against the might of the Empire. Against Thorixus Prime with its celestial shield and defense fleet? The humans must be insane. Send 20 cruisers to intercept and capture those vessels, Vexcor ordered. Bring them in intact if possible. I want to see these ships that we supposedly never knew about. The 20 cruisers launched immediately. They were Imperial Talon-class vessels, each one capable of destroying a small fleet. They moved confidently toward the human formation, weapons powered but not yet armed. This would be a quick arrest, not a battle. The cruisers never reported back. The human fleet deployed thousands of small drones, each one carrying advanced AI and basic weapons. The drones were too small for the cruisers' main guns to target effectively, and there were too many for point defense systems to stop them all. The drones swarmed. They attached to hulls and cut through with molecular saws. They infiltrated engine compartments and detonated. They hacked communication systems and spread chaos. In 17 minutes, all 20 cruisers were disabled or destroyed. Not a single human ship had fired its main guns. Vexcor stopped laughing. Battle stations, he ordered. Activate the celestial shield to maximum power. Scramble the entire defense fleet, and someone get me a direct line to Imperial High Command. We have a situation. The celestial shield blazed to life, a shimmering dome of energy that covered the entire planet and its orbital stations. Inside its protection, Vexicor began to feel confident again. The shield was impenetrable. The humans could throw everything they had at it and it would hold. He was wrong. The human fleet did not approach the shield directly. Instead, they moved to positions around the 3 moons that housed the shield generators. Admiral Okoro had studied the celestial shield for 30 years. She knew its strengths. She also knew its weaknesses. The shield was designed to stop large projectiles and energy weapons. It could detect and intercept missiles. It could absorb energy attacks. But it was calibrated to ignore small objects. Space dust, micrometeorites, small debris. The shield had to let those through, or it would drain its power supplies, stopping every tiny particle in the system. The drones that had destroyed the cruisers were small enough to pass through the shield threshold. Thousands of them descended on the shield generators. Each one carried a micro-fusion device, powerful enough to damage critical systems but too small for the shield to register as a threat. The generators began to fail, not all at once but in cascading sequence. First one moon went dark, then another. The shield flickered and died. Thorixus Prime was exposed. Admiral Vexcor scrambled his entire fleet. 1,200 warships launched from orbital docks and planetary bases. It was the largest concentration of Imperial military power in the sector. It should have been overwhelming. The human ships revealed their true capabilities. Railguns fired. Not energy weapons that could be deflected by shields. Not missiles that could be intercepted. Pure kinetic force. Tungsten rods accelerated to 5% of light speed. The projectiles hit with the force of nuclear weapons. Imperial ships designed to withstand energy attacks crumpled like paper. Their shields, calibrated for different wavelengths and frequencies, might as well not have existed. But the worst part was the human tactics. They did not fight like any enemy the Empire had faced. They used false retreats to draw ships into kill zones. They broadcast false surrender signals, then attacked when Imperial vessels approached. They hacked Imperial communications and sent contradictory orders, turning the defense fleet into chaos. And then there were the berserker ships. 20 vessels in the human fleet had no life support. No crew quarters. No biological systems at all. They were pure AI. Mechanical minds devoted entirely to destruction. The Empire's ancient fear of artificial intelligence was about to be justified. The berserkers moved with inhuman precision. They calculated trajectories no living pilot could follow. They made decisions in microseconds. They coordinated attacks with perfect timing. Each one was worth 10 conventional ships. The Battle of Thorixus lasted 6 hours. When it ended, 900 Imperial warships were destroyed or disabled. The human fleet lost 89 vessels. Admiral Vexcor sat in his command center watching the impossible happen. His species did not have tear ducts, but if they did, he would have been crying. How? He whispered. How did we not know? Corinthian appeared on his communication screen. She looked tired and vindicated in equal measure. I tried to warn you, she said quietly. I tried to tell anyone who would listen. Humans went silent for 3 weeks. Complete blackout. That's not grief behavior. That's preparation. What do they want? Vexcor asked. Exactly what they said. Zethor and his chain of command. Vexcor made a decision. He was beaten. His fleet was destroyed. The humans could bombard the planet whenever they wanted. 40 billion lives depended on what he did next. Arrest Commander Zethor, he ordered. Strip him of rank and authority. Load him on a shuttle and deliver him to the humans. Zethor was found in his quarters, still unaware of what had happened. He had been celebrating his promotion. When the guards came for him, he did not understand. What is this about? He demanded. You killed a human child, the guard captain said. Now humanity is killing us. The Admiral is giving you to them. Zethor's blood ran cold. Over 1 juvenile, 1 insignificant casualty. That 1 casualty just cost us 900 ships and probably this entire sector, the captain replied. Move. Zethor was loaded onto a shuttle and sent to the human fleet. Admiral Okoro received him personally. She looked at him with an expression he could not read. Not hate, not anger. Something colder. Do you remember her name? Okoro asked. Who? Zethor replied. The child you killed. There was a casualty. A juvenile. It was an accident during enforcement. Her name was Maya Chen, Okoro said. Say it. Maya Chen, Zethor repeated. Good. Now you're going to spend the rest of your life learning about her. What she liked. What she dreamed. What she could have become. You're going to learn what you took from the galaxy when you filed your report calling her death regrettable, but necessary. Zethor was taken away. Admiral Okoro turned back to her communications officer. Broadcast to Thorixus Prime and all Imperial channels, she ordered. The following message: the Empire has 72 hours to meet our demands. Recall all military forces from human-occupied space. Pay reparations of 50 trillion credits. Deliver everyone in Zethor's chain of command for trial. If these demands are not met, we will demonstrate what total war truly means. The message was received across the Empire. On the capital world of Sirathax, Emperor Calix watched the battle reports with growing fury. A minor species had just destroyed a regional fleet. Impossible, unacceptable, he called his military advisors. How many ships do we have in reserve? Grand Admiral Thexnar had commanded fleets for 60 years. He had fought in 17 major campaigns and never lost a battle. When the Emperor ordered him to take the Grand Fleet to Earth and crush the human rebellion, he felt confident. Almost bored. This would be his easiest victory yet. 10,000 warships assembled at the staging point beyond Imperial Prime. The fleet represented 800 different species, all united under the Imperial banner. It was the largest military force assembled in 3 centuries. Nothing could stand against it. Thexnar reviewed the intelligence reports. Humans had surprised everyone at Thorixus with 300 unknown ships and advanced weapons. Clearly they had been hiding military development. But 300 ships could not stand against 10,000. The mathematics was simple. What is our travel time to the Sol system? He asked his navigation officer. 30 days, sir, using standard jump routes. Too long. Use the Corinthian passage. It will save us 2 weeks. The navigation officer hesitated. Sir, the Corinthian passage is difficult. The FTL corridors are narrow. If anything goes wrong, nothing will go wrong, Thexnar said firmly. The passage has been used for 10,000 years. It's perfectly safe. Speed is essential. The humans must not have time to prepare. The Grand Fleet entered faster than light travel, following the ancient route through the Corinthian passage. The ships traveled in a long column through the stable FTL corridor. Each one following the vessel ahead. They never reached the other side. Dr. Maya Chen stood on the bridge of the science vessel Newton, watching her creation come online. The Kasaba howitzer weapons platforms were positioned at 17 different exit points along the Corinthian passage. Each platform was a focused nuclear explosion, channeled through exotic matter, creating a directed plasma jet hot enough to slice through any known shield. But the platform's true purpose was not to destroy ships. It was to destroy the FTL corridor itself. Firing sequence initiated, her weapons officer reported. The platforms detonated simultaneously. Nuclear fire channeled through carefully designed geometries. The plasma jets did not fire randomly. They targeted the space-time structure of the FTL. Corridors themselves, the Corinthian passage collapsed. The Grand Fleet was traveling at faster than light. Speeds through a corridor that suddenly ceased to exist. 2,000 ships were caught mid-jump. Some were crushed as space-time contracted around them. Others were scattered across light years of normal space, separated from the rest of the fleet. A few simply ceased to exist as the physics they depended on failed catastrophically. The remaining 8,000 ships emerged from FTL in complete chaos. They were scattered across 17 different star systems. Unit cohesion was gone. Communication was disrupted. They had lost 20% of their strength before seeing a single enemy ship. Grand Admiral Thexnar stared at his tactical display in shock. How had humans done this? Collapsing an FTL corridor should be impossible. The technology required was beyond anything he had seen in 6 decades of military service. Regroup, he ordered. All ships make your way to the rally point. We'll assemble and continue to Sol. But the reports kept coming. Human strike forces were hitting Imperial installations across the sector. Shipyards destroyed. Orbital platforms disabled. Supply depots burned. The attacks were coordinated with perfect timing, hitting multiple locations simultaneously. The humans were not fighting like a single fleet. They were fighting like a distributed intelligence, each group operating independently but toward the same strategic goal. On Imperial Prime, Thorixus worked through the night analyzing human tactics. She had been promoted to Chief Intelligence Analyst after being proven right about the human threat. Now she was trying to understand how they fought. She found the answer in ancient records, files 10,000 years old from the early days of the Empire. Records of a species called the Vortesh who had nearly conquered the galaxy using distributed warfare and artificial intelligence. The Empire had eventually defeated the Vortesh by using weapons so terrible they were banned forever afterward, planet-killing devices, biological warfare, weapons that violated every principle of civilized combat. Thorixus realized with growing horror that humanity had studied those records. They had learned from the species that almost won, and they had improved on those tactics with 50 years of preparation. She tried to contact the Emperor directly. She needed to warn him that continuing this war could force the Empire to use weapons they swore never to use again. Weapons that could destroy humanity but would damn the Empire's soul in the process. Her request was denied. The Emperor was too busy ordering more attacks. Grand Admiral Thexnar finally regrouped his scattered forces. He now commanded 8,000 ships instead of 10,000. Still overwhelming numbers, still enough to crush Earth. But as his fleet moved toward human space, he noticed something disturbing. Every time they tried to use FTL corridors, they found them collapsed or unstable. The humans were systematically destroying the infrastructure the Empire had relied on for millennia. His fleet was forced to use slower, less efficient routes. The journey to Sol, which should have taken 30 days, had already consumed 60. And every day humans hit them. Not major battles. Small strikes. A dozen ships would appear, fire a devastating volley, and disappear before the fleet could respond. Supply ships vanished. Scout vessels were destroyed. The fleet began to hemorrhage resources and morale. "They're bleeding us," Thexnar's tactical officer observed. "Wearing us down before we even reach Earth." "It doesn't matter," Thexnar insisted. "We still have overwhelming force. Once we reach Sol, we'll crush their homeworld and end this." But doubt gnawed at him. He had never faced an enemy like this. The humans did not fight honorably. They did not meet in open battle. They struck from darkness and vanished. They used psychological warfare, broadcasting messages showing captured Imperial soldiers, spreading fear and confusion. Finally, after 90 days of travel instead of 30, the Grand Fleet emerged at the edge of the Sol system. 8,000 warships battered and exhausted, but still a formidable force. Admiral Okoro was waiting. Her fleet had grown. Not to 8,000 ships, but to 500. Still vastly outnumbered. But Okoro was not worried. Thexnar was about to learn humanity's final lesson. "Welcome to Sol," she broadcast on all Imperial channels. "You came here to destroy our home. Let me show you what happens when you threaten everything we love." The Grand Fleet advanced confidently. 8,000 ships against 500. The mathematics still favored them. Then the asteroid belt came alive. Humanity had spent 50 years turning their solar system into a fortress. The asteroid belt, which contained millions of rocks ranging from pebbles to small planets, had been carefully modified. Thousands of asteroids now housed mass drivers, railguns, and missile platforms. The first volley killed 300 Imperial ships. Thexnar tried to evade, moving his fleet above the plane of the solar system. But Jupiter's massive radiation belt, which had hidden humanity's secret shipyards, now revealed its other purpose. 50,000 autonomous drones emerged from the deadly radiation. The drones were simple, no shields, no armor, just engines, basic sensors, and nuclear warheads. They swarmed the Imperial fleet like angry insects, sacrificing themselves to take down much larger vessels. The Grand Fleet tried to flee toward Saturn, hoping to regroup. But Saturn's rings, composed of countless ice particles and rocks, had been weaponized too. Hidden among the natural debris were thousands of laser platforms, each one powered by nuclear devices. The Imperial fleet was caught in a kill zone designed over half a century. Everywhere they turned, weapons emerged from hiding. Every piece of the Sol system had been turned into a weapon. Grand Admiral Thexnar watched his fleet die. Ship after ship exploded or went dark. His carefully assembled armada was being torn apart by a solar system that had become a single massive weapon. And through it all, Admiral Okoro's fleet struck with surgical precision. They did not need to win an open battle. They just needed to guide Imperial ships into the kill zones, herd them into positions where Earth's defenses could do their work. The Battle of Mars lasted 6 hours. When it ended, only 12 Imperial ships escaped. The rest were destroyed or disabled. Grand Admiral Thexnar's flagship was crippled but intact, deliberately spared. Admiral Okoro boarded it personally. She walked through corridors filled with dead or dying crew members. She found Thexnar on his bridge, wounded but alive. Why? He asked, his voice weak. We offered you peace, membership in the greatest civilization the galaxy has ever known. You offered us servitude, Okoro replied, and when we questioned it, you killed a child. An 8-year-old girl named Maya Chen who wanted to be a musician. She'll never play another note, never laugh, never grow up. And you filed a report calling her an acceptable casualty. One life, Thexnar whispered. In a galaxy of trillions, one life too many, Okoro said. She leaned close, her voice hard. You came here with 10,000 ships to destroy our homeworld, to kill billions in revenge for us defending ourselves. You thought we would be easy to crush because we're a young species, a minor power. You were wrong. She stood and gestured to her security team. Take him. Keep him alive. He's going to spend the rest of his life learning about every person who died because he thought humans would be ease. The message from Imperial Prime reached Earth within hours of the Emperor's arrest. Thorixus appeared on every screen in the Terran Union Council chambers, her alien features showing exhaustion and something that might have been hope. Admiral Okoro, Council members of the Terran Union, she began. The Emperor has been removed from power. A coalition of Imperial species has taken temporary control. We wish to negotiate peace. We acknowledge that the Empire was wrong. We acknowledge that Maya Chen's death was not an acceptable casualty. We are ready to listen to your terms. The council chambers were silent. Elena Vasquez, the oldest member who had activated Protocol Valkyrie, spoke first. How do we know this is not a trick? That you're not buying time to prepare another attack? Crix's expression showed understanding. We know you have no reason to trust us, but consider this. We have nothing left to attack you with. Our Grand Fleet is destroyed. Our FTL infrastructure is damaged. Our Emperor is arrested. We are for the first time in 50,000 years vulnerable. If we wanted to continue fighting, we would have done so. Instead, we are asking for peace. Admiral Okoro, watching from the bridge of the Retribution still in orbit around Mars, spoke up. What happened to the Void Sanctums? The Emperor tried to activate them. Destroyed, Thorixus replied. When the Emperor attempted to use them, they detonated in their facilities. We lost 3 fortress worlds. We suspect human infiltration teams compromised them decades ago. In Geneva, Dr. James Rodriguez smiled grimly. His people had indeed spent 30 years embedding themselves in Imperial society, preparing for exactly this scenario. The Empire never knew how deeply humans had penetrated their most secure installations. We want peace, Thorixus continued, but we understand you will have conditions. We are prepared to discuss them. The Terran Union Council met in private session for 6 hours. They debated, argued, and finally agreed on their terms. When they reconvened, Elena Vasquez read them aloud. These are our non-negotiable conditions for peace. First, complete demilitarization of all Imperial forces within 500 light-years of human space. Second, reparations of 200 trillion credits paid over 20 years. Third, every individual in the chain of command that led to Maya Chen's death must face trial in human courts. She paused, looking directly at Thorixus. Fourth, formal recognition of complete human sovereignty. No more provisional status. No more compliance missions. We govern ourselves. Fifth, establishment of the Maya Chen Accords. Galaxy-wide laws protecting civilian populations, especially children, in all conflicts. These laws must be enforced by an independent body with real authority. Thorixus listened carefully, making notes. These were harsh terms, but not unreasonable given what had happened. And finally, Elena continued, humanity claims a permanent seat on the Imperial Council, with veto power over all military actions. We will not allow another species to face what we faced. We will not allow bureaucrats to decide that any life is an acceptable casualty. This demand caused reactions across the Empire. Representatives from hundreds of species protested. How could one species of 300 billion dictate terms to an empire of 40 quadrillion? Admiral Okoro provided the answer in a public broadcast. You ask how we can demand this? We can demand it because we proved that numbers don't matter as much as will, because we showed that one determined species can bring your ancient empire to its knees, because you need us whether you admit it or not to reform what you become." She leaned forward, her expression intense. "For 50,000 years, the empire has grown comfortable. You forgot what it means to truly care about your people. You became bureaucrats of oppression, filing reports and calling deaths regrettable but necessary. We will not let that continue. Not for us and not for anyone else." The debate lasted for weeks. 23 species formally supported humanity's demands. 12 declared neutrality. The rest argued against giving so much power to a single species. But in the end, they agreed. The alternative was continued war against an enemy who had already proven they could win. An enemy who had turned their entire civilization into a weapon and showed no signs of backing down. The peace treaty was signed on New Sarajevo, in the rebuilt central square where Maya Chen had died. Dr. Sarah Chen represented humanity. She had left Mars after the Battle of Sol, unable to continue developing weapons now that peace was possible. But she was the right person for this moment. She had lost the most. She had the right to accept the Empire's surrender. Corinthian represented the reformed empire. She knelt before the memorial statue of Maya, a bronze figure of the little girl reaching for her toy, forever frozen in that last innocent moment. "I am sorry," Corinthian said quietly. "Those words are inadequate. They cannot bring her back. But they are all I have. I am sorry for what the Empire did. Sorry that we forgot the value of individual lives. Sorry that it took a war to make us remember." Dr. Sarah Chen looked at the statue of her daughter. She had not cried since that first day. She had been too busy, too focused on revenge, on justice, on making sure no other parent would feel what she felt. Now, with peace finally here, the tears came. "I didn't want this," she said, her voice breaking. "I wanted to raise my daughter, watch her grow up, hear her play music. I wanted a quiet life on a peaceful colony. You took that from me." "Took her from me. I know," Corinthian replied. "And nothing we do will make that right." Sarah wiped her eyes and straightened. "No, nothing will make it right. But maybe if we do this correctly, Maya's death will mean something. Maybe it will save other children. Other parents. Maybe that's enough." She extended her hand. Corinthian took it. The treaty was signed. The months that followed brought massive changes to the galaxy. The Maya Chen Accords became law across all Imperial space. An independent enforcement body was established, with representatives from hundreds of species. Humanity provided the military backbone, but other species contributed oversight and authority. Zethor stood trial in The Hague. He faced charges of negligent homicide and numerous violations of sapient rights. The trial was broadcast across the galaxy. For 6 weeks, witnesses testified. Videos played. Experts explained the impact of his actions. Zethor was forced to watch footage of Maya Chen's life. Her first steps, her laughter, her attempts to play the violin her mother taught her. He was made to understand that the entry in his report, "One indigenous juvenile casualty," was a person. A child with dreams and fears and potential. He was found guilty and sentenced to life imprisonment. He would spend his days in a human facility, continuing to learn about the species he had dismissed as primitive, about the child he had killed and called regrettable. The Empire underwent reformation. The military-industrial complex that had sustained expansion for millennia was dismantled. Species that had been subjugated for thousands of years gained real representation on the council. The bureaucracy of oppression was replaced with systems of accountability. It was not perfect. Old habits died hard. Some species resisted the changes. But humanity's fleet remained active, patrolling the borders, ready to enforce the new order if necessary. Admiral Okoro commanded the new Joint Defense Force, combining human ships with reformed Imperial vessels. They responded to distress calls, protected colonies, and ensured the Maya Chen Accords were followed. 1 year after the war ended, Okoro returned to New Sarajevo for the anniversary memorial. The colony had been rebuilt. The central square was now a park, with Maya's statue at its heart. Children played around it, their laughter echoing off the buildings. A young ensign accompanied Okoro. He was fresh from the academy, too young to have fought in the war. He looked at the statue with curiosity. "Admiral, may I ask a question?" "Of course. Did we do the right thing?" "I've studied the war. So many died. Millions of Imperial personnel. Thousands of humans. Was it worth it? Okora watched the children playing. They ran and laughed without fear. Their parents watched from benches, relaxed and smiling. This scene would not have been possible a year ago. Not in Imperial space. Not with the old system. War is never right, she said slowly. It's a failure of civilization. A breakdown of everything we're supposed to be. But allowing children to be murdered with impunity? That's worse than wrong. That's the death of civilization itself. She turned to face the ensign directly. We didn't start this war because we wanted to. We started it because someone had to show the galaxy that there are lines that cannot be crossed. That some actions have consequences no matter how powerful you are. That individual lives matter even in an empire of trillions. And now? The ensign asked. Now we make sure it never happens again. To anyone's children, not just ours. We watch, we protect, we enforce the rules that the Empire forgot. And we remember. She gestured to the statue. Every human ship carries a hologram of Maya Chen. Every colony has a memorial. We remember her not just as my daughter's friend, not just as a casualty, but as a symbol, a reminder of what we're protecting, of why we fight when we must and why we seek peace when we can. The ensign nodded thoughtfully. They teach us about her at the academy, about her life, her dreams, what she wanted to be.